Hello, and thanks a ton for tuning in. It's time for me, Hawkeye, to bring you the final, so far, installment in the Superman series, that being Man of Steel. Great title. Uh, that's what the film is about, after all, is the Man of Steel. This being the sixth film in the series, it is a remake of Superman 1 and Superman 2, taking the backstory, which, come on, it came from the comics. Uh, so that's what they're getting it from. But it's a remake, and certainly a reimagining of the Superman character. Now, I need to ask this question, um, and it's really bugging me. What is with these Superman films? I watch them, I like them, or I even really like them. I watch them again, and they are much more problematic on a second viewing, or the problems shine out to me a lot more, or they're just stumbling blocks that I can't get around. Um, so, unfortunately, I really want to like this movie. I really do, but I can't give this film a passing grade. Now, I know there is an audience for this film out there, and there are people where this likely is their most favorite Superman film, and they love it to death. It does have a great, uh, actually, I would even say certainly much better than Superman Returns, but a great blend of action and romance and the Superman story. It's uh, it's got the perfect elements needed for a good Superman film. But I have a problem with, and I'm definitely going to get to that later. I'm going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of this film. To me, but it's in the characters, or some of the characters, and the decisions of the characters, including Superman himself, that sink this film for me. Um, just I can't recommend it. But as I said, there is an audience to this film, and those are the people that perhaps aren't gigantic fans of the original. Even if you are, like I'm saying, this film isn't for you, but you have to be able to want a very different Superman. And I'm up for it after watching three Superman films that didn't do it for me. They weren't good enough. I was ready for a new look, a new Superman. You get it here. But as I said, it's a problem with some of the characters, and some of the decisions. And in the end, the writing. It's really interesting because it goes from very well written to horribly written, all in the same film, to me. But perhaps to some people out there, they love it and they see no wrong in the film. But I will go through everything, and hey, I've had a real blast watching all these Superman films, but I'll definitely bring that to you now. So this film was directed by Zack Snyder, who I believe did the following two films Superman's in: Justice League and Superman versus Batman, Dawn of Justice. Haven't seen those films as of yet. I would like to in the future see what I think of them. But I did see his remake of Dawn of the Dead, the classic. I love it. 1978 George A. Romero zombie flick, Dawn of the Dead. I saw it. I haven't seen it in many years, but I really liked it. It definitely went down different avenues, different tunnels than the original. And hey, go for it if you want to. I thought it was pretty good. I definitely will see that again, um, at some point. Now, the story to this film was done by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, who is a very well known filmmaker. Currently, he may be thought of as one of the finest filmmakers still producing or directing films at this time. Now, Goyer had written the three Blade movies. So Blade, Blade 2, and Blade Trinity. Now, the two of them also, that's Goyer and Nolan had worked on Nolan's Batman pictures, um, which were Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Nolan also did Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, which I have seen and I thought it was good. Haven't seen that in a long time. There's just so many movies out there, right? Um, but then the screenplay was done by Goyer. Now, as I said, um, some of the film is, and it, really to me, it's more like the characters or the backstory. Some of it is actually very well written, and then some of the characters are just cardboard or terrible, um, just underwritten. Um, in saying that, there are some layers to the screenplay that, hey, that's really good. The layering and the writing, I enjoy that, and it differentiate. It I can't speak right now. It distances itself from the original Superman films by doing that, by adding different things into the story. And hey, in the end, that's good. Maybe at times it's a little overlayering, but in the end, it comes out, and that's pretty good as well within the writing. Now, as well, Man of Steel, I would definitely say, is up to this point, up to the sixth film. This is for sure the most complex Superman film, but it works for it and works against it in some regards as well. And hopefully, I can share those with you, the complexities or certain elements that are added that hurt the film for me. Now, it was released on June the 10th, 2013, so 10 years ago. It premiered at Alice Tully Hall in New York City. I believe that's located. Now, it was released nationwide on July the 14th, 2013. Now, the film had a big budget, so just to let you know, we all know what they turn out like when they have a low budget, like Superman 4. But this one had a big budget of up to, as I read, 258 million bucks. That's a big budget. It made back that big time. It made 668 million at the box office in return, so they cashed in on this one. Now, this film of the six Superman films, and it makes sense. I mean, it's progress in time. It's not 1978 anymore. This film has the most CGI going on within it. It's at times very heavy CGI. On my initial watch, I was fine with that. On the second watch, it got a little too much for me. For me, I'm an old guy, I guess. Whatever. As I said in the Superman Returns review, this one does it and does it even more. To me, to my mind, to my eyes, it plays out like a video game, which I'm fine with. It's Superman, that's okay. But there are times where I actually feel like I'm watching a video game and not watching a film. But that's me. To other audiences, that would be okay. So that alone, that doesn't ruin the film for me, but that's just a statement I have in watching this film. Now, as well, this may be the first one, definitely, that is not for the kids. Once again, we understand this is not 1978, but this isn't the family friendly Richard Donner version of Superman. There's certainly some intensity to the bad guys. There's a lot of fighting scenes going on. Of course, it's in all the Superman films, but there's some violence and some bad language going on too, and some scenes of pretty bad bullying going on as well. But this one's not for the kids. It was rated PG-13 when it came out, so that's okay. Whatever. I don't care. If you want to watch a kid-friendly Superman, watch the original one. This one is its own thing. So just to let you know, this one really isn't for the kids either. Now, I'm going to quickly go through the story real quick. Um, And then what I'll do is I'll go through a couple things about the film, and then I'll go through the acting, the good things I liked about it, and then I'll get to the reasons why this one unfortunately just doesn't do it for me. Now, as I said, it's a remake of Superman and Superman 2, so we're given the backstory of Krypton. So we watch Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe, does a very good job in the role. Uh, so we follow him and Krypton and the fact that it's going to be exploding or be destroyed. So in the end, and I didn't really mention this in the other Superman reviews, but I will here because I don't really want to say that for every single Superman film. I waited to the end to say it. Um, Definitely with the Superman story, there is a Jesus Christ element going on or flavor with it. Um, since Jor-El sends his son to Earth to save the people, to help the people. In this film as well, Superman even gives himself up to General Zod, the main bad guy, for the people, like Jesus Christ would. So there's that going on. Some imagery as well, like him coming through space, almost like he is on a cross or talking to a priest, and beside him in the stained glass, there's Jesus. There's imagery and story elements of Christ in this story, and that's pretty interesting as well. Um, Definitely to have a superhero um, coming from that story or a religious story, because the creators of Superman were two Jewish men, and I'm not sure if it was exactly Jesus Christ that they were basing this on, but it definitely has a religious element to the story. Now, as well, we see on Krypton General Zod. I'm going to get to him later in a little bit, but he is there, menacing, evil, very angry with the elders of Krypton for allowing this to happen to the planet where it's going to explode, and he wants to take over. But his plan is foiled, and he ends up in the Phantom Zone, like he was in Superman 2 with his allies, those that are following him. So, flash forward, uh, Superman is sent to Earth. Uh, he um, he is kind of roaming around the world, essentially almost like looking for an answer to his life. General Zod is broken out of the Phantom Zone when Krypton explodes. He ends up going to Earth after Superman or Clark Kent finds the scout ship that sends out a beacon that General Zod sees, and then he flies to Earth with his allies, and in the end, battles Superman. General Zod is trying to take over the Earth and create a new Krypton. And then another element added into the story, which I liked as well, was as well as Superman, Jor-El sends the codex of the people of Krypton, which is essentially all of the people of Krypton. And then we find out at the end of the film that is actually inside Superman, or it's in Superman's cells. All of these people, the codex is actually inside of him, which is cool because it's also something General Zod wants to get his hands on to create a new Krypton with this codex. So it's definitely a layering in the story that works for me. Now, as well, with the reimagining of this film, I would say, and I may have said it earlier, but just to go into it a little bit more, I find it actually quite ballsy. Some of the things that they do in creating a new story, a different Superman, a different everything to the story, and some of it works really well. I was ready for it after watching, as I said, three films that didn't do it for me. I'm ready for something different, absolutely at this point. But at the same time, some of it doesn't work, and in the end hurts the film to me because I'm not when I'm watching the film, I'm not okay. I'm wanting Christopher Reeve to show up. I know this is Man of Steel. It's its own film, but with the problems, and I'll get to them. I kind of go back to the original and see how it was done so much better, written so much better, and how the characters were done better in that particular film. And my thought is with the comics as well, they were done that way. A couple of interesting notes as well. The name Superman is actually never mentioned in the film. So he's known as Clark Kent because there is no two characters. He's Clark Kent, um, who then is given the suit by Jor-El, his father, and wears it. So it's, there aren't two different characters. It's just the one character, which is interesting. I'm all for that. Uh, as I said, I was ready for anything really at this point. And then there's also nods to both Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne, as in battles between Superman and General Zod. There are, I think it was like a satellite was Bruce Wayne's, and I think it was a fuel truck by LexCorp. So it's an interesting nod to those two characters as well in this film. Now I'm going to go through the acting, and first off, Superman this time is played by Henry Cavill, and I gotta say he is absolutely, without a doubt, the most ripped Superman. And I'm cool with that because he is Superman, so shouldn't he look shredded? He is in fantastic shape in this, and well done for him to uh, get into that shape. And supposedly that's true, that's real. None of that was CGI, so he was in that kind of shape for this. As I said, there's no goofy, stumbly Clark Kent. It's just Clark Kent, but him and Superman are the same. So there isn't two different characters. But Cavill, I would definitely say, puts in a good performance. Uh, I have only seen this film twice, and there's two more films he's in, I think, as well. I don't have a problem with his performance, um, but I almost prefer Brandon Routh as Superman than him. He's not wooden or dry or anything like that, but I don't know. There seemed to be more charisma, perhaps, in Superman Returns. I don't know, but in the end, it's a good performance, and I don't have a problem with it at all. So, Amy Adams in this one plays Lois Lane, and she does a very good job, I think. One thing I really like about her character is she seems to do some investigative work. She actually seems like a reporter, where in Superman Returns, we're kind of just told she's a reporter. We seen her do some reporting, but it didn't work out as well as it does in this. And Amy Adams does a very good job, and that side of her comes out as well. And yeah, it works well. Now, as I said, Russell Crowe plays Jor-El. He does a really good job, and it was good casting because in comparison to the original, he's much more. He's in his own action scene as well. He's very much the father of a superhero, so he's a superhero himself, you could say. So he's much more in the action than say Marlon Brando was in the original. It was a much more, you know, dramatic, perhaps, but he's right in the action in this film here. Now, definitely one of the better performances in the film would go to Michael Shannon, who plays General Zod in this film. Now, I must say, General Zod's character, I really like this. And this is why I really want to like this movie, because I thought he was very well written. We get a much deeper look into Zod than we got in Superman 2 or Superman. It worked in those original films because of the tone. This is a very different tone to this film. It's a much more serious look at Superman, that story. So, in order for that to work, they went the right way and really gave him a nice, deep uh, backstory with a lot of meat on the bone for General Zod, and he puts in a good performance. So, yeah, you're not going to get the kneel before Zod, which is okay. We don't need that. This is Man of Steel. So, as I said, it's a very different tone. And Shannon does a very good job in with the intensity, his meanness, menacing. He's all of that, and it really works. Now, as well in this film, and I like this one too, there's a deeper, more expanded look at Martha Kent, the mother of Clark on Earth, here played by Diane Lane. And I gotta say, it's about time she got this much screen time. This is the sixth film. She's an extremely important character to the story of Superman. In this film, I would definitely say without her, I don't know what Superman would have become. Because I'm going to get to the other character later. Um, but hey, I really liked it. She does a really good job, and I'm really glad they expanded her role and gave her quite a bit of screen time for that character. Now, I love how Larry Fishburne is playing Perry White in this film. Uh, I really like him. I think he's a great actor. Whenever I see him in a film, I'm like, hey, there's a film I might want to watch because I really like him. He's a good actor. I couldn't care less that there's a racial change from white to black in this. I couldn't care less. He's a good actor. That's all I care about. And hey, it's a different flavor to the character, a different look. And hey, I welcome that with open arms, and he does a really good job. Christopher Merloni shows up as well and does a good job in the film. Um, Now, a couple of characters that aren't in here. There's no Jimmy Olsen. I'm not sure why. It doesn't ruin the film in any way, but he definitely is a Superman character, but he's not in the film. And it's General Zod. So in Superman 2, there was General Zod, Ursa, and Non. There is no non character in this film. Now, this is taken from the comics, all of the character names. There was no Non in the comics. He was written specifically for the film. So there you go, whatever. But there's no non character in this. Now, I'm going to go through the good things in the film that I liked. Make me whine because I really want to like this film. So I'm going to go through some of them. First off is the music. It's really good by Hans Zimmer. I'm really glad they didn't bring back the old John Williams score. This is a totally different tone, totally different film, totally different look. There's no need to bring that music back because then you're just going to connect it to those films. But Zimmer's score is very good. It's very dramatic. It's really good and it works very well. So that was a plus to the film, the music. Now, the film has a very, very good pace. Certainly in comparison to the last film, Superman Returns, it has a very good pacing. And it runs 2.5 hours. And the film actually goes by at a pretty good clip. Does a pretty good job with that. So it also has a brighter look than Superman Returns, which is a plus as well to me. And I don't mind the Superman look they went with. Whatever, that's cool. I like it. But definitely the brighter look helped the film. I don't need that dark look that Superman Returns had. And as I said, it's also got a very good blend of action and romance. There's actually more action than romance, and that's kind of the way it should be in my mind. Um, where Superman Returns, there seemed to be more romance than there was action. So it's got a good blend going on in that sense as well. Now, I did like watching Clark Kent grow up, dealing with his superpowers and how to deal with it in the world around him. Now, this is where Martha Kent steps in and helps him deal with that personally. This is just me. I would have had Superman uh, learn how to deal with this from Jor-El personally, because he would have a more of an understanding of what he's going through or all of that. Where that's just me, but I do like that, and I think that was very much needed in the story. Now,
And
as
with
well,
that,
as I said, there was a couple bullying scenes going on that are somewhat intense, and I actually almost wonder if Stephen King was an uncredited writer for this film. But actually, it would have been worse if he was. But it's pretty bad when you watch that. You're like, oh my, this guy's being bullied really bad. But now
um,
within the battle scenes, they're heavy CGI, big time. It kind of by doing that, it disconnects me from the scenes a bit because it is so CGI heavy. But the standouts would be the battle in Smallville, and of course the finale between Superman and General Zod. There's a lot of action going on in those scenes. They would be the highlight of the film within the battle scenes. Now comes the time, um, and I got 3 pages here to read. The bad and the ugly. I'm gonna go through that. Um, like the first time I saw this, I thought this was pretty good. And then I saw it again. I waited a few weeks, saw it again, and I was like, oh, it's not hitting me in the same vein. And then the next day, I was like, I didn't like it. Now, these are the things why there's a lot of destruction in the battle scenes, understandable, but there are a lot of deaths or innocent human lives that are taken in these uh, fight scenes. Because the city of Metropolis didn't go to Barbados for a vacation. Those people are in those buildings, and there's no way they survived. There's thousands of people that would have died in this film. Uh, and this will go to something I'll mention later, but those deaths alone would have a much greater impact on humanity than them learning that Superman has superpowers and he's an alien. All those thousands of people that died would have had a much greater impact on the humans of the world uh, than the fear of knowing who Superman is. Now, in the end, this goes to Superman, and it's fine. But this, in my opinion, is a very flawed Superman or a very flawed superhero in comparison to the Christopher Reeve or the Brandon Routh Superman that were brought in previous films. Because of stuff like that, human lives are lost. Where, for example, in the Christopher Reeve films, there is a scene in the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 where General Zod brings a gun into the White House and shoots some people. Personally, that should have been cut right out of that film. But that's the only case I can come up with off the top of my head of human lives that were lost.
in this
Now, I
film,
find in this film, Superman is not as prepared to face off against General Zod as he was in Superman 2. Even though he's given way more information about General Zod, Superman doesn't know really what to do. Where in Superman 2, he was not going to trust Zod. And it was through a nice, really good dialogue between Reeve and Brando telling him who General Zod is. So that doesn't really work for me either. Now, the decisions of Superman, this is a prime example of the thousands of lives that were lost. He's fighting with General Zod in General Zod's ship. They're fighting, and then Superman uses the heat eyes, the laser eyes, whatever, and sinks General Zod's ship. Where does it go? It crashes right into a building where thousands of people would be inside, where they all would have plummeted to their death in Superman bringing down the ship to try and stop Zod. That right there is flawed. His decision wasn't that good. Like I would say, when the shit hits the fan, his character doesn't really know what to do. For example, in Superman 2, when he's facing off against General Zod in Metropolis, he flies away. He's not running away, he's taking them to his Fortress of Solitude, where he can defeat them, but get them away from the people of Metropolis. Here, he directs Zod directly into Metropolis to kill thousands of people. Not a very good decision for a superhero, in my opinion. Now, one scene I didn't like, I'm not saying they shouldn't have gone this way, but was the scene in which Clark is on a school bus and then the school bus crashes into the water and all the children are just about to drown to death, and then Clark saves their lives, pushing the bus out of the water. Therefore, everyone in Smallville would know Clark Kent has got some superpowers. He's like a superhero. Everybody in Smallville knows that. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done that. I like that idea of Clark Kent, perhaps as a beginning story of his becoming a superhero and saving somebody's life. But I like it more where he does it, but perhaps the person's unconscious or isn't totally understanding what's going on. He saves their life, but can get away with it. That I like more because everybody knows he's a superhero now, um, which puts into question the character of Jonathan Kent, which I'll get to in a second here. But um, yeah, I didn't quite care for that. Now I'm going to go through the three characters that didn't work for me at all, and in the end, are the reasons why this film just doesn't do it for me. Now, first off, I'm going to go with I think in this film she was Captain Carrie Ferris in this film. She plays, I believe, in at least one other Superman film that happens after this as well. But I thought she truly, from my memory, and I don't feel like watching the film again to really figure that out. But um, it seems she doesn't really do anything. She just asks questions, and that's it. And what's the point of her character until the end of the film, which I thought was a terrible, eye rolling, vomit inducing scene where she thinks Superman is hot. Um, to me, that was the worst example in all of the Superman films of someone being attracted to Superman. She came across almost like a 10-year-old girl who was in love with her teacher or something. I don't know. Like it, it didn't work for me at all, and I didn't find it funny. And in the end, her character was just terribly written, I thought. Um, but in saying that, the film still could have worked, even with that in there. Um, but then the next character I did not like, and it was in the writing department. It wasn't the acting. The acting, she did what she was to do and everything like that. But was the character of Feora Ulf. Now she plays the Ursa character in the comics. That was her name, was Farah Ul. Um, Here she's played by Aunt Jaya Trewaya. My apologies. Um, just saw her character was horribly underwritten. Her whole character was look mean and keep that going. She takes orders from General Zod, and that's it. That's fine. But her character was underwritten horribly to me, and almost hollow in a sense. Because yeah, I guess she's mean and menacing, but I needed more to her character than that. There wasn't enough there for me to really like that character, which is and crazy to me because I thought General Zod was so well written, and then she is so horribly written that they needed to give her something. And to me, to me as a viewer, and there was not enough there for me. Now this leads to my least favorite character because even with that, this film still could have worked. But the one character that sinks this film to me is Jonathan Kent. Uh, and as I said, I'm totally for like a different look on Superman, but there are definitely elements if you add his character in the film as well as Martha Kent. Where would Superman get his morals from? His parents, like that he had on Earth, they would show him the way, give him the fabulous morals that he had. Uh, where in this, Kent's kind of like giving you good and bad and weird and not the right idea on leading Superman to be who he perhaps should be. The one thing to me, and even if his character knows, hey, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that. Um, it doesn't matter. He still said this. He said that maybe everybody in the bus should have died. That might have been a better idea than letting people know that you have superpowers or that you are an alien or you got these amazing gifts. That is ludicrous to me. That's bonkers. Uh, I understand in the original Superman, he wasn't faced with that decision. He would have done the same thing. He would have saved their lives. But I can tell you, Jonathan Kent in the original films and probably in the comics wouldn't have said that or thought that that was a good idea. Let them die. It doesn't matter. Like, I that just didn't ring true to me to who I think Jonathan Kent is, and I'm not saying he can only be one way, but in creating him this way, uh, it's it doesn't work for me at all. Now, for example, in the original film by Richard Donner, Clark wanted to play football so badly. He wanted to join the team, show everybody how amazing he is, how he could single handedly win every football game because of the gifts he had. But Jonathan Kent told him in a wonderful scene with Glenn Ford, told him that he wasn't brought here. The reason he's on Earth wasn't to win a football game. And my God, he was right. He was totally true in that regard. Um, but Jonathan believes in this film, the world just could not accept him being from another world, and we need to keep that a secret from everybody. In him doing this, or in the process of his dialogue with his son, to me, he comes across as weak and extremely scared. Um, and that kind of it those that's given to Superman's character. Those things, his decision making is questionable as like I had brought up, costing thousands of lives, and that comes from Jonathan Kent. Uh, I even question if he's playing with a full deck of cards because he wants Clark to become a farmer. Sorry? And I have nothing wrong with farmers. My mother was a farm girl. I have an uncle who's a farmer. Uh, I have no problem with farmers, but we're talking about Superman here, not just some other guy. And you want him to become a farmer. That's underusing your gifts, I think, a little bit. If you want him to become a farmer in the original film and in the comics, I'm not sure if that's what he wanted Clark to become, but I got a feeling he wouldn't be fighting so hard for him to become a farmer as he is in this film. Now, in this film, he it's not completely horrible, but uh, anyways, Jonathan dies due to a tornado, and at the time, perhaps I've got it. He doesn't really understand the full potential of his gifts, Superman. Maybe he doesn't know how he could fight against a tornado. But in watching the previous films, he definitely could fight a tornado and win, and would have been able to save uh, Jonathan's life, um, or in the very least, he himself could have got to the car, got the dog. The whole reason why Jonathan went to the car was to save the dog. Uh, with his super speed, and nobody would have noticed. There would have been a way for that this he could overcome this. But the tornado takes Jonathan's life. And in the original film, I thought it was perfectly written as it was a heart attack. Superman can't fight a heart attack. There's nothing he can do against that. His all his superpowers can't do anything against a heart attack. So I thought that was perfectly written. Where in this film, he could overcome the situation that he was faced at that time. And then in the end, I just found it weird how in this film, it seems like every character, when they're in the last second of their life, they're just so freaking calm. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, they're just so calm. But in saying that, all about Jonathan Kent, I did think Kevin Costner did a good job in the role. It was just I didn't like how his character was written, how his character came across, and I didn't like this version of Jonathan Kent. I understand they're going for a different look, different everything, but I didn't like how this character was written and how it came across. And in the end, I would say it didn't bring the best Superman out because of his character. Now, how I think the film should have been done is this: in right in about the middle of the film, there was a scene where I was like, "Ooh, that's cool." Where General Zod sends a message out to the people on their TVs, on their phones, everything of who he is, where he's come from, and he wants Superman. I think they should have started the film with Lois Lane. You're introduced to her, she goes to Daily Planet, and then you're introduced to all the important characters at the Daily Planet. From there, they could then have the scene with General Zod sending the signal out and take it from there. Get reaction from the people. I didn't think there was quite enough of that in this film. Reaction of the people, of the normal citizens of the world, how they're reacting to Superman. And that was a gigantic thing for Jonathan Kent. And he didn't really see a whole lot of that to me in this film. And then you could carry it on with General Zod becoming more menacing and terrifying and everything like that until Superman shows up. And you could have a reason why he's not known or why he was in hiding. Perhaps it's because he doesn't know how to deal with his superpowers quite as of yet, or the death of maybe both of his parents, something like that that he's dealing with. And this is a gigantic hurdle that he could overcome and become the Man of Steel within this fight with an evil person like General Zod. Personally, I would have liked that more, and even the backstory, maybe not even included in the film. Leave that for a film all on its own, just dealing with Superman's backstory. Or you could have it in a flashback where he's perhaps telling Lois Lane, who's going to write a piece about Superman, and he tells her at that time, and you could get the backstory at that time. For me, that would have worked better, and it would have had a wonderful, wonderful hook at the beginning of the film that I would have loved and would have had me riveted and in my seat. And in this film, it's not as riveting as it should have been because you already know everything. You already know who Superman is and where he is and all of that. And if you start with that, it might have worked better, in my opinion. Now, one question I had as well when watching the film is General Zod in the Phantom Zone is released when Krypton explodes. My question is, who else was in a Phantom Zone who was released as well? So, what other criminals are flying around the universe originally from Krypton that Superman may need to deal with? Because I got a feeling General Zod wasn't the only dude in a Phantom Zone. They didn't create the Phantom Zone just for him. So there'd be some other bad guys that are flying around the universe that we don't know about. So, but anyways, that's my review for Man of Steel. And as I said, man, I really wanted to like this, but it was a problem with the characters that sunk this one for me. But anyways, as I said, I've had a blast watching these Superman films, and so that's that. And then my next review after this, I'm going to talk about one of the Star Wars films. So, anyways, it's been a blast. Anyways, woo woo woo. Keep watching them movies.